Welcome everyone to theScore Fantasy Football Podcast. I'm your host, Justin Boone, the lead fantasy analyst at theScore, and today's episode is presented by Subway's $6 barbecue pulled pork Mighty Melt Combo. Try it today. And before we get started, I actually have to thank Subway for giving me a chance to actually try it today. They sent over some delicious melts. It is very much appreciated, especially at this time of year when we get so busy. Fantasy analysts are crazy busy this time of the season. Our guest today is going to be able to talk about that as well. But thank you very much, Subway, for the sandwiches. Today's show is the third in a four-part series. It's sort of a season preview or a draft preview, if you want to call it. We're going to go over every position. Last week, that was quarterbacks and running backs. You can go back and listen to those. Today, we're tackling the wide receiver position, and we're going to get to breakouts and busts and sleepers and all that great stuff a little bit later. But oddly enough, a lot of the news recently has been about wide receivers, and that's what we're talking about today. So let's bring in our guest to help us talk about that. It's our old pal, Jake Seeley from The Athletic, the all-in kid himself. You can find him on Twitter at allinkid. Jake, how you been, man?
As you said, busy as hell. It's never stopping. This is also because I still do fantasy baseball, so these 3 weeks at the end of August are always the worst for me. There's so much overlap between the two, but finally September will be here. Baseball will be done, although baseball will still be going, but football full swing, and I'm just loving the fact that we're in the middle of the draft season, and I get to sleep in about 2 weeks for like 3 hours.
Man, I don't know how you do the baseball as well still. I know some guys, like Matthew Berry, he stopped doing the baseball stuff. It is incredibly impressive that you do it, and it's incredibly impressive that you're so accurate at doing both, man.
It's just really come to what my development has been in the projections. And then I always say this, you know this, we've talked about before when we've done ranking shows together. I just rank to my projections, and that's where I go because it helps take out my biases of like, hey, I really like this guy. And well, just because I really like this guy doesn't mean he's going to get 15 more touches than the other person will just because I think he's awesome looking. But yeah, I like to take out my own biases, talk about target share, time share, snap counts, all that type of stuff, because that's the truth. You know this. It comes down to volume and then your performance on that volume. So you can be excited for somebody, but if somebody's going to get 110 targets and somebody's only going to get 40, well, there's probably going to be a pretty big difference between the two.
It would be so nice if it did just come down to who we liked and disliked. I really wish that was the case. Since we're so busy, you know what? Let's start nice and easy on you here. What was your biggest fantasy takeaway from the second week of the preseason games?
See, there's not a lot. Mostly it comes down to people, and the biggest takeaway is that people overreact, to everything, including still the preseason. I think the biggest one is, I'm not saying this to be like, haha, I told you so. It's kind of I guess because I've been on this side of it, it's a little bit of a confirmation bias. So maybe I'm looking at it from a different lens. But the truth is, it comes down to the Arizona Cardinals. And as you might have seen on Twitter, I've had a lot of conversations. Everybody's been talking about the Cardinals because the Cardinals are Kyler Murray and all the excitement of Cliff Kingsbury and everything there. And I'm one of the biggest fans of Christian Kirk. He's inside my top 25 wide receivers. But I continue to say is, I don't think David Johnson is the consensus number 5 running back. I don't think Kyler Murray is a lock to be a top 10 quarterback, despite how much he's going to run. And it all comes down to the offense, one, has to work. I mean, we could be going down to Chip Kelly Road and it could blow up in their faces. And two, the offensive line is still a major issue. And I told people out there, go talk up how bad Kyler Murray looked so you can get better value in your draft, but still draft Kyler Murray. But come away from that game still understanding the concern of Kyler Murray, David Johnson, this offense as a whole, is that offensive line is going to be a problem, and we could see more volatility than people expect.
It's true. I think it was a lot of projecting with the Cardinals. And we talked about it a little bit earlier about, the players that you like, wanting them to do well. I think that's a little bit what's happening with the Cardinals. Now, is the possibility there that they are going to be outstanding? Of course it is. But we still got a long way to go, and it's a long preseason. We can't overreact one way or the other, right? They looked pretty good in week 1. They looked pretty bad in week 2. We still got a couple games to go here, so we'll see how it is. When you're talking about wanting to invest in an offense, though, the Cardinals, it's a bit of speculation that they're going to be good this year. The Chiefs, we know they're going to be good. And my biggest takeaway this week, and maybe it was a long time coming, but I have expected that Damian Williams was going to be the starter and was going to be the best fantasy asset in that Chiefs backfield. This week, I finally realized that, you know what, Carlos Hyde, it's not going to happen for him. I never thought that he was going to come anywhere close to being the lead back there, but I thought he was going to be the immediate backup. Now, I don't think so. After this weekend, after what we've seen, after what we're hearing out of camp, we've seen a bunch of different national writers and local writers suggest that Hyde might not even make the roster. Then he comes out this week, he fumbles, and that's not even the worst of it. The worst part for him is that Darwin Thompson, the rookie, just looks really outstanding in that offense. He's good as a receiver. He's showing power. He can run between the tackles. I mean, Andy Reid even came out after the game and talked about Thompson and talked him up a little bit. So I still think that Damian Williams is the guy to own there, and I'd be willing to grab him, the early third. I think he's still a top 30 fantasy player. But Darwin Thompson is incredibly interesting as a late round pick, and Carlos Hyde has plummeted down my rankings this week.
And that's certainly understandable. The fact is I'm with you. I was never the concern that Carlos Hyde was going to take any touches. My only concern was Damian Williams being healthy. The Darwin Thompson situation is interesting to me because as soon as Damian Williams came back in the practices, Damian Williams was getting a ton of first-team reps, which makes sense because you got to get him back into the flow of things. But Darwin Thompson didn't get a single first-team rep for the first couple of days that Damian Williams was back. And that made me think maybe Darwin Thompson's starting to falter a little bit. But I think that what you've seen and what you said and what everything you just brought up, it's changing. He is performing. Carlos Hyde didn't look good last year and people want to make excuses for him, but the truth is he's been outplayed. And I think if you look at Darwin Thompson, despite his size, is something I said when he came out in my draft profile, is that great balance, knows how to lower his pads, knows how to shake defenders when they don't have him squared up. And you saw that. You saw him carry the one dude in that game. And I think that's the impressive part here is, to your point, Damian Williams is the guy, but if you're looking for, if Damian Williams gets hurt, Damian Williams falls on his face and is terrible for the first 4 weeks, it's not Carlos Hyde that you want as the backup. It's probably Darwin Thompson now.
And if Hyde does get cut, he's going to be looking for his 5th team in the last 2 years. I mean, that tells you something, I think, right there as well. But we're going to see how it all plays out. I think there is a strong chance, though, that Hyde is going to get cut when the final roster cuts come down.
My baby said leave on time.